Good morning, Hockey Nation Live fans, Pucks and Dreams followers. I'm so sorry. Coach French will probably join us in a little bit, hopefully. I had last minute family requirement, had to drive the wife somewhere, so that was kind of impacted me a little bit. Good morning, Bud the Monkey. Thanks for joining. Sounds like Adam might have a little bit of trouble joining us. Nicola is always here in the morning, so thank you for joining us. Michael Rosenblatt, good morning to you. Kane cheats. I don't know. We'll talk about this. I'm not sure how much I should care about this, to be honest with you. I think it's just an allegation, and they'll do an investigation and find out. So Patrice Bergeron's son, are you formerly Brad Marchand's son? I'm just going to message Coach Frenchie. All right. So there's probably been a lot of topics that have been covered over the weekend. We're kind of heading into the dog days of summer for hockey. We're probably like 70 days away from the regular season. Maybe it's a little bit, it's kind of around there, I think. You beat the Cheese Doodles 4-2. So I don't know if, is that like your summer team? But the Monkey, good morning. Hopefully you're still joining us. Nicola. So some of the things that we wanted to check on. One was I think the biggest thing that actually kind of surprised me, because I did not think, Coach told me that we needed a Patrice. Well, there you go. Now we have a French name in there. I mean, Marchand's kind of a French name, but bravo. There you go. So the one story that came up that was kind of surprising to me, actually, was that Marc-Andre Fleury, after giving consideration, has decided to report to the Chicago Blackhawks. And, I have no inside information on this whatsoever. I just kind of observed that he's a different person. Like, he's a very gentlemanly player. He likes to get along with people. And, sometimes you see goalies that are great goalies, like a Patrick Waugh. He's just got a fire in him, and everything's a fight and a battle. And that's not really Marc-Andre Fleury. And we've seen at times where Marc-Andre Fleury has like lapses, and, he can make some mistakes in key moments. And that's why I kind of thought, this is probably a sunset. He's comfortable in Vegas. He has family, and he's taking into consideration family. Because another player would go, yeah, I'm going to Chicago, and I'm going to fight it out. Good morning, Eagle. Thank you for joining us this morning. So basically, the report is now that Marc-Andre Fleury will be joining the Chicago Blackhawks. And I think this is huge news for Chicago, because really, if you look at last year, their goaltending, they had an early success with Kevin Lankinen, who surprised us all and looked like, when they had solid goaltending early on, they played very well. What Kevin Lankinen becomes long-term, I'm not sure, but he started out really good, and they were in the playoff hunt early in their division. And then, kind of fell off. Like, they did not have a single goalie. Kevin Lankinen played 37 games last year as a rookie. So you can see he had 17 wins, 14 losses, 909 save percentage, 2 shutouts. However, the 301 goals against average kind of crept up over time, because I think in the NHL, the reality is you've got to be down around 2.5 or less. And ideally, you want this save percentage of around 910, 912. Malcolm Subban's always been a career sub 900, so he started out okay and then kind of fell off. So to get a goalie like Marc-Andre Fleury, regardless if he's playing, you're probably 250 or less. Like, if he's a career 2.50, 2.54, 913 save percentage last year. Now, Vegas has very, very good defense, and I think the Chicago defense has probably improved. But here he is, 928 save percentage during the regular season and a 1.98 goals against average. So you got to say, look, even if he ends up kind of around where he's been the last few years, like 270, 250, 220, that's a huge improvement for Chicago. We know they have some really good offensive weapons. So you got to think this is a very positive thing for them. So I'm kind of excited about it. I thought, honestly, that he was going to retire, and then he would just call it a day just based upon the approach. But, I think that he's made his decision, and this gives them probably the best goaltending they've had since Corey Crawford. Corey Crawford kind of struggled, but there you go. Look at this. The Twitter announcement. He's in, he's got the flower there, but I don't know what it means he's in. He's in. I get it. Yeah, the flower is in. So that's got to be positive news for them.
Hey, Chicago, it's Mark. So I'll let you know I'm in. Let's get to work.
Good stuff. That's great news. He was not made aware and be taking time to discuss his situation with family. Kelly McCrimmon's statement about this kind of contradicted this, where he said, hey, I talked to the guy on the weekend. I talked to him in exit meetings. I didn't release, anything to the public saying that he was traded. This was just a rumor that somehow got out, and it's not from our organization. So I think that is, kind of what was behind the initial controversy where he was like expressing shock at being traded. I don't know if he could express shock at that though. Like they told him, hey, look, we're only going to go with one of you, and it's probably not you. But I get it. He's a classy, gentlemanly guy, and I'm excited for Chicago fans. Everybody in hockey said there's summer place not making news. I agree, except the Kraken, who couldn't write a cap legal contract and had to stay home for summer school. I don't know what that means. Yeah, you'll have to kind of share that with me. I don't have a lot of faith in that. So I don't know. What do you think about this now that the trade is complete and he's going to report? I think it helps out Chicago tremendously. And if you look at Chicago, they're looking pretty good. Like they made some aggressive moves. One is the fact that Jonathan Toews is coming back. I can't think that Jonathan Toews would go through all the trouble of coming back without thinking that he's going to play the whole season. So I think that's huge for them. They get their captain back. He's kind of dealt with as much as he can this medical issue that's kind of odd. It's definitely not a normal injury. And I think it put things in question. Kind of reminded me of Marian Hossa's weird injury, right? Where he had like this persistent skin problem and rash. And if you know hockey players, there's some crazy rashes and things that go on with, equipment. And it can cause a lot of problems. They messed up the year-to-year escalation on the Grubauer contract and had to resubmit it. Oh, interesting. That's weird. I wonder what happened there. I'll have to look up the story on that. So now if you just look quickly, I'm really high, as everybody knows, on Kirby Dach. He was a kind of an odd person to me initially, the way he communicated, but man, you look at this guy on the ice, he's 6'3", 6'4". He's got the skill of a much smaller man. And you could see when he started asserting himself, he had injury at the beginning of the year that he sustained. I guess it was World Junior Championships, and that knocked him out with, I think, the broken wrist. So that was just unfortunate. But I think what you saw once he gets in the game, this guy's going to be a number one center in the NHL. I just don't see how he's not. Patrick Kane is still playing at the top of his game. Alex DeBrincat is absolutely at the top of his game. Kubalik, I really love this player. He's very dangerous. And we saw, not this year, but the prior playoff year where they knocked off Edmonton, Kubalik was probably their best player in most games. So to get Jonathan Toews back, I don't know the future of Dylan Strome. This is just an odd case for me. I think they probably move on from that. They made the Tyler Johnson trade where they moved out the Brett Seabrook contract and they brought in Tyler Johnson, which is a net positive for them. They signed Jajjar. So, I'm happy for Jajjar as a former Everett Silvertip. He's a nice person in a sense, and he's big. So I think coaches look at him and go, hey, I want a big, mean, nasty third, fourth line guy. So maybe there's a little bit of an inconsistency to his game. However, he's shown he can get 10, 12 goals in a full year. He's reliable two ways, and I think you can trust him to do a really good job. So I think this is a good pickup for them. I was a little bit surprised that Edmonton moved on from it. Might have just been based on the value of the contract. I like, by the way, Tyler Johnson more in the middle, but he's shown he can play wing. And I think he's probably going to play up on the top six. I don't see how you can not keep him up there because he's capable of being offensively productive still at the NHL level. Henrik Borgstrom, I think they're still waiting for him to pop through. And then the big news on D was a little bit of a restructuring back here. They initially got Caleb Jones. You thought that was a bit of a prelude to getting his brother Seth, and that's what happened. And then they make a big trade to get Seth Jones, giving up Adam Bachfist and some other assets, but Adam Bachfist being the big thing that goes back to Columbus right now. Seth Jones, legitimately a number one defenseman. So they get like a legit number 1D. He gets a big contract. So you've got to think, like, over last year, they move out Duncan Keith. They bring in Caleb. Caleb's definitely a bottom 6 on the D. Jake McCabe is another signing. I always think Jake McCabe is like Jake McNabb. Is that his name? The Vegas guy, Braden McNabb. So I always get him a little confused, but he's a smaller, quick veteran defenseman. I think he's real good. He had some health problems last year. Connor Murphy's shown to be real solid. Calvin DeHaan has a lot of injury problems in his career. So I think they still need to make some moves to tighten up the back end. However, we saw early on when they had decent goaltending, this was a playoff caliber team. I don't know. I was late, unfortunately, this morning, Patrice. So I just let him. Unfortunately, I sent him a message earlier saying I got to make a last minute run. So I'm not sure if he's jumping on. I hope so. He might be a little annoyed that I had to start late. So Jajar is a PK beast, and I guess they figured they'd get more from Derek Ryan. Yeah, probably. I think it was probably similar money, and I think Derek Ryan might, have shown a little bit more consistency and intensity, and maybe it was time for a change there. In Everett, we had both Jajar and his brother Savvy play for us at different times, and they're just big, nice people. They're big guys, and I think coaches look at him and go, I want this guy to be mean and dominate, and he's got all the skill that you would think, but he's a good hockey player. Good morning, Yarmo. Thanks for joining us. So I don't know. What do you think about Chicago? Is Malcolm still on the team, and where did he go? Malcolm Subban is still on the team. That I don't think anything's changed there. I've never been that high on Malcolm. I always think there's a bit of a gap there between what you would want. I just don't see him as an over 900 save percentage goalie. And I think that there's always been little flaws in his technical game. I don't know. I think he's always he could be a capable backup maybe in some circumstances, but he played better than he did anywhere last year, beginning. Has Lankinen Chicago deal? I don't know. I thought he was signed. Let's take a look, because I thought he was signed for 1 year, but let's just double check. My assumption is they would go with Lankinen and Fleury, and then see, like, is Lankinen, it was last year's beginning kind of a flash in the pan, or has he been exposed as, he's got 1 more year at $800,000. So I think that's pretty favorable. He's 26. I thought he played very well in the beginning. He stole a lot of games early on. A couple years ago, you got to remember, they traded away Robin Lehner. And when they were in playoff contention, they traded away Robin Lehner. So I never understood that. I don't know. He had a great start last year. I agree. Good morning, Greg, John, Yarmo. We did have a great start. And so I think that's the question. Was it did he get lucky? Were they playing better, and that helped him? Or is he a long-term goalie in the NHL? I hope it's the latter. He really played very well. So if he's capable of maintaining that level, and if maybe having a veteran guy like Fleury there who knows the ropes, can take a big workload, and learning from him, hopefully that helps drive him and he becomes the goalie of the future for them. The end was bad. He was struggling a little bit. So I don't know. Like, he's never played that many games before, right? So I think that was new for him. So you got to break in goalies over time. And I think the fact that he stepped in and played as well as he did was great. And then obviously the numbers fell off and the starts fell off. Has Kaprizov signed? No. I don't know what to think of this. Does not sound good to me. I mean, for me, he's confident about signing him, man. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on here, but there hasn't been a lot of news lately. They qualified him. They're saying it hasn't gone cold, but you don't have to. I don't know how you can like the direction of these conversations. Yeah, he played a lot of games, and I think that's tough. First of all, he's never played in the NHL before. If he's played in Europe or he's playing the AHL, I can't remember if Kevin Lankinen played. I thought he played in the AHL. Did he play in the AHL last year or the prior year? Or did he come right over? Look. But he played real well. I'm pretty sure he was an all-star in the AHL. Yeah, so he played for Rockford. He only played 21 games a year before. It was so for him to jump up, his save percentage was 909. So that's interesting. It was 909 in the AHL, and then this year was 909. And his goals against was 3. And you can see in the AHL his goals against was 3. His numbers in Finland are very good, but that's definitely a step below. So I'm a little worried about that looking at that. Like maybe he's a capable backup. He took on a big workload and he had a good winning percentage. But if he plays more like the end of the year, if he was exposed, like NHL shooters, everybody's got video and they start getting a book on a goalie and they start figuring out how to score on him, right? Kaprizov to the Bruins, that would be terrible. What do you think about Evander Kane? All right, so this is the other big story that's out there right now, which is really, I think, unfortunate. We know that last year Evander Kane had well-documented bankruptcy. There was always a lot of, there was trouble with him in Winnipeg. He didn't fit in the culture there. I think at one point there were stories of Dustin Byfuglien taking all of his equipment and chucking it into the shower. Evander Kane's a big guy. Dustin Byfuglien's way bigger. So it was interesting. He took it upon himself to boot him out off the team. And then he got moved and he signed a big contract. And then all the stories came out that he was deeply in debt to casinos, allegedly over like card playing mainly. But now his wife has made this, Twitter post about him betting on games. So now there's going to be an investigation. They're going through a divorce and there's child custody. So I think there's lots of dirty tricks that happen. You got to hope that this guy did not bet on. He said he came out with his own statement and said, look, I've never bet on hockey. I've never bet on games I've played in or on my own team, which is what her allegations were. So this just might be, more grist for the mill, so to speak, and not maybe a good way. It's a divorce case. So I think the NHL will investigate it. He's going to have it's one of two things. It's going to be very easy to prove whether he did or not, especially if it was through Vegas and there was some registration of it. We've had stories like this of like NBA refs, Pete Rose, there's people, and there are a lot of hockey players, I think, gamble. And, now you got Vegas as a team. And this guy, he likes a flashy lifestyle. He likes showing money. He likes the fact that he goes out to clubs. Hopefully kind of is changing his tune a little bit. And San Jose is a quieter place. So hopefully then he's kind of changing that behavior. I mean, to have made so much money and then to go through bankruptcy and be that much in debt and now like having to go through a divorce and I think she's pregnant and it's a big drama. So I don't think any of this is about hockey. I hope that he didn't. And you hope that he learns from this and kind of matures. Is DeBrincat solid defensively? DeBrincat is a lot like Cole Caulfield. So I think DeBrincat manages the puck very well. I don't think he's a defensive player. He's a player that can really shoot the puck. He finds spaces, and I think Cole Caulfield might be very, very similar. He might be a little thicker than Cole Caulfield and a little bit bigger, but not much. They're very similar size and frame. I think Cole Caulfield might be faster, but it's a very similar style. So this guy can really score big time. He's always been a big time scorer. He's a U.S. development player, and he, has carried that over to the NHL. He was a big time scorer with the Erie Otters and the OHL. So in Major Junior, he was big time. So this guy, he was always very, very high end, and they picked up a great player, just like Montreal picked up a great player. Was Swayman good, or was the team carrying him? No, he was very good, I thought. I think Swayman, he's from Alaska. I've watched him. He's a 2000, I think, birth year. I think Jeremy Swayman is maybe a 2000. Let's just double check. I think he played very well. He's only 22, and I thought he played extremely well, and he has elite numbers. Like when you look at, for me, he's a 98, so he's a little older. He's a 22. He played at University of Maine. So, yeah, he's from Anchorage, Alaska. I remember him from the Anchorage All-Stars and the Aces, actually. And you look at his career save percentage. For me, that's something that might vary a little bit from league to league, but it's such a telling indicator for me for goalies. So I always kind of get, a red flag if a guy's low. This guy's he had a 933 save percentage In the AHL, it was 8-1 and a 1.89. He had a 1.5 and 2 shutouts. Okay, so you go, well, that was a fluke. I don't think that's a fluke, man. There's something going on here. 939 in college, 919 in college, 921. So you can see he's a very high save percentage goalie everywhere he's played. And that's why he's made to the NHL so soon. So he's a big guy. Is he 6'2", 6'3", 6'3" listed here? He's got that prototypical lean, tall body that gets drafted, and he's very solid technically. I really like this goalie. His wife might honestly think he did it based on all kinds of bad gambling. I don't think she cares at this point. It's going to be a war. So whether it's true or not will come out in the wash. And it's got to be just a little bit distracting, but you hope. He had a career year. I've never been a huge fan of him, but he did have a career year, and he's going through self-inflicted tough times when we're talking about Evander Kane. So I don't know. And yeah, Swayman's a 98. So I thought he was a 2000, but he's a little older. So I don't know. This is a good goalie to me. I really like this. This is like 4th round draft pick. Good move by Boston getting him. They didn't have a lot to develop here. I mean, he played 3 years in the NCAA and then went pro. He was way too good at this point for the NCAA, and that seemed obvious. I think you could tell if a guy went his last year, went to the AHL, probably the right thing, got some NHL games in, and maybe some of that was due to COVID, but he showed he's very capable. I mean, that's no joke to get 945 in the AHL and then 933 in the NHL, and it's the other way around actually. Geez, so yeah, this is a good goalie to me. There's something there. Now he's got to do it over the long term, and he's got a veteran there that'll help him out because they just made they brought in Allmark, and I really like Allmark. Allmark's another big body, technically sound goalie. He's had injury problems. So I don't know. Boston to me right now is real good in net. Pierre doesn't think that Tuukka Rask will come back. I guess we'll see. I think he probably will, but I guess we'll find out. And if he doesn't, then I think they made some good moves to solidify their goaltending. Interesting. Yeah. So let's move on from the Evander Kane story. There were some other signings over the weekend that I didn't get to comment on. So one was this signing of, let's see if we can get to it, Warren Fogle. And then that might have been like late last week. He signed a 3-year deal with Edmonton after being traded there. I think that was a very good contract for him. I think it's like $2.5 million. So that's a great pick for him long term. The Nick Ritchie signing, I don't know if many people commented on this. Chicago is in a tough division with all the roster turnover. The Central seems tough to assess. I mean, listen, to get, they got Tyler Johnson. I think it's a great move for them. They got Seth Jones, great move for them. I think they're still a defenseman away. Calvin DeHaan, you cannot rely on, I don't think, in an 80-game schedule. He's just had too many injury problems. They moved on from Duncan Keith, which was probably tough. But, getting Caleb Jones, I think Caleb's very capable of being kind of a number 5-6D. And having his brother there, I think, will help. They improve in net with Marc-Andre Fleury. And you got to hope that a guy like Borgstrom pops through a little bit. I really like Kirby Dach for a full year. Pierre talked about Ritchie, Lehkonen. Yeah, I'm sure. So for me to comment on Ritchie, this is interesting to me, which is, there's not a lot of movement right now, by the way. Like, obviously, we're kind of getting into the quieter period now that, most of the free agents are signed. It was interesting that Boston walked away from him. I think maybe because he had arbitration rights. And he scored 15 goals in a shortened season. Nick Ritchie's always been able to score at every level. He's a big body guy, but he's not the greatest skater. So I would say he's an average skater, maybe below average. So he kind of looks a little bit lumbering. I thought he improved his quickness a little bit last year. And he obviously got 15 goals. So I think for Toronto, this is a depth guy that, can play. You can move him up on the top 6 if you have to. By the way, he's very, very, you don't want to fight him. He's very powerful. He weighs like 235. He's like 6'2", 6'3", 235. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts the lineup. And then Arturo Lehkonen was the other one. You know, he can be very useful. He can score some goals. I think that he got a 1-year kind of show me contract. Thanks, Movie Andy. I agree with you. Thanks for commenting. If you haven't, please hit subscribe. I agree with you. I think Kane and Toews are going to be excited to play. I think having Toews back is a huge thing. And I don't think he's coming back unless he knows he can play the whole year. And he's an excellent captain, excellent leader, and he's still a very good hockey player if he's, healthy. And he didn't, the way I look at it is he didn't have any major injury. He just had like this weird physical reaction, right? Like this, I don't know, they described as a central nervous reaction. So I don't know. It's a little odd. So I'm hoping that he's got this under control and he can come back and play a full year. And I think they're gonna be very motivated. I mean, they got some real good offensive weapons on the top 6, and now even on the third line, actually on the fourth line too. And then I think they're still a defenseman away from doing anything now. Jonathan Drouin was skating. We'll see what happens. I don't have a lot of, I don't know. Maybe Montreal's not the place for him. I realize he's talented. He's always been talented. Tampa Bay moved on from him for a reason. They got the better end of that deal getting Sergachev. He's not going to be a franchise player. He's got that talent. But, it was funny because when he was drafted, a lot of people were whispering, oh, he's better than McKinnon because they went 1 and 3 in that draft. And I'm like, I don't think so, man. he's a kind of an individualistic player, and he holds on to the puck a lot. So I don't like those aspects of his game. He's a guy that should be pass first. He can shoot the puck too, but he just makes bad decisions with the puck for me. And then now to have this issue where he's having a hard time dealing with the pressure of being in Montreal, maybe maybe he needs to go to somewhere that's got less pressure. Like maybe Florida was a good place for him, but he's also a guy that was kind of cocky and arrogant. And I think that rubbed people the wrong way. Like he's like, hey, I'm going to be the greatest. And then, so you can see there's some weird self-esteem thing. Having fans back could be huge for Chicago. One thing that drives me nuts about Chicago are all the blackouts. I don't know if you're a subscriber to the NHL network. The whole content thing has been a nightmare on NBC in a lot of ways. And between subscribing to NHL package and then, get this game you can't see, and Chicago's always blacked out. And I'm kind of like, they're like my third team that I like to watch. Like I like Chicago. So let me watch them. And I can't, so many times I can't watch them. It's so frustrating. And I don't know, I'm not going to go get cable subscription. So I don't know. I think hopefully the ESPN package solves some of this. But I'm not loving the coverage so far that I've seen. Like the first toe dip into it is not great. It's just typical Disney stuff. It's like, it's good enough to not be bad. And then it's bad enough to not be great. So I don't know. When the Hawks sucked, the United Center was sold out. True. Yeah. They have very good fans. I mean, Chicago has some, the best fans. It's a big arena too. Like unlike Seattle, which doesn't even have an open arena yet. Seattle will be about 17,000 fans. I think there's 20,000 in that United Center, and they pack it out. I mean, they even have the Chicago Wolves in that city. So that's a great hockey city. Yeah, I got to hope that Chicago takes a step forward, becomes a playoff team. It'd be great to see them have a fast start with the moves they made. And, if they can be the top of their division, I would not be surprised. Yeah, and I think this is a big question mark. Like, there's all this chatter about whatever is going on out in the world. I mean, you can see if I'm in Dallas and the seats are filled and everybody's fine, like this should be the case everywhere, right? Like it's unfortunate. I think that even the cross-border stuff is still a big question, right? Like Canada's on crazy lockdown. You can't get across the border very easily. So even for us in the WHL, like, I don't know if we know exactly what's going to happen yet. Until that border is totally open and there's no more threat of it closing, it's definitely going to impact the schedule. So NHL hockey doesn't start till October, guys. It's like August 2nd here. But we're going to get through August pretty quick, and then we'll get into training camp, and it'll be busy again. All right, so let's see. Some of the other signings that I think people probably already talked about. We talked about the Evander Kane situation. Tyler Bertuzzi, and I think Pierre talked about this as well. So I didn't get a chance to talk about this. Tyler Bertuzzi signs a 2-year extension with the Wings. What's interesting to me is they've now have Tyler Bertuzzi, Robbie Fabry, and P.S. Suter. All of them played for the Guelph Storm in the OHL. And, first of all, Tyler Bertuzzi has become a much better NHLer than I ever would have anticipated. Like, he was leading the team last year. He had like a really good start to the year, and then he missed based upon injuries pretty much the whole year after the first 9 games. So I think he showed the year before too. He's a gritty guy. He goes to scoring areas. He's not like a traditional, I don't know how you compare him, but he had 5 goals in 9 games last year. Now, do I think he's a 50, 60 goal scorer? I don't. However, he had 2 years of 21 goals. So he gets like a pretty decent contract here. I think it's a good move, keeping him in the fold. Steve Yzerman's done a great job in the offseason. So to get him, they moved out the Mantha contract, which I think I've talked about, has been huge. Like bringing in Jakub Vrana, they got Sebastian Kosa, and frankly, they got Nick Leddy. So for a bunch of those moves and one piece of, they basically got 3 guys for Anthony Mantha. And Mantha was not an everyday intense player. Hi, William. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you're getting settled in Florida now, because I think you've moved there. For me, having Tyler Bertuzzi healthy and in the lineup is going to be huge for the Red Wings. He's a leader on that team. He's shown he can score gritty goals, and he brings it every single shift. And he's kind of like one of those guys that goes to tough areas, and he's difficult to play against. And that's what Detroit needs to be more and more. So I think this is great to have him. By the way, it was Dylan Larkin's birthday today or yesterday. So happy birthday to Dylan Larkin. I think that top line, to me, this is a non-traditional top line, right? Larkin, Bertuzzi, they're projecting Zadina. I would think Raymond moves up here, or Fabry. And I think they've got pieces that can, switch out, which is useful right now. There could be a lot of depth. We saw Adam Ernie can score last year. That was a great breakthrough after a pretty average first season. So I think this is a great move. They have depth here. P.S. Suter, to me, I was very surprised, as Pierre knows, that Chicago moved on from him, because he killed Detroit. First of all, he had the hat trick against Detroit that one game, and a lot of games he was the best forward on the ice for Chicago, and he's got OHL experience, and he's got a relationship with Robbie Fabry and Tyler Bertuzzi, who have been 2 great contributors to the improving Detroit Red Wings. So I like this move of bringing in P.S. Suter. Joe Veleno showed last year he can definitely skate at an AHL level, and I think he's going to be a reliable 2-way player. He's a pass-first guy, but he's shown he can also shoot a little bit. So I think he's going to be real useful next year. I like Michael Rasmussen at center. They might be targeting him on the wing. He's 6'6". He showed last year he dramatically improved his skating. So now you get this freight train. This guy's fast now, and he's got great hands, and that's what people don't realize. Like, to me, Michael Rasmussen could easily be an amazing second-line centerman in the NHL. So I don't think you play Rasmussen on the wing. If you do play him on the wing, they'll be fine, but I think you lose a big element of the game that he showed last year. Is Filppula done? I mean, in reality, or I think he has 1 year on that contract, Yarmo. He's getting pushed further and further down. He's not the Filppula of 10 years ago, right? Like, I used to love Val, but he's just not that player anymore. Between Val and Franz Nielsen, I think both contracts are still. Oh no, maybe the Filppula contract is done. Maybe last year at $3 million was the last year of that. So yeah, he might be done. So that's going to be interesting. Do they sign him to like an $800,000 or $900,000 contract? Because I think at that point that's what he is. They have Vlad Nemenstikov, who's 1 more year at $2 million. And I think he's a step up over what you get from Vlad at this point, or from Vyacheslav. Not Vyacheslav. Valtteri, sorry. I'm going back in my Red Wings history. You gotta be excited that this only has 1 more year. This is a terrible contract. Like, this is another retirement contract given by Ken Holland, unfortunately. So I don't know. You like this. They brought in Sam Gagner. He's shown that going year to year is probably the right thing with him. Adam Ernie still needs to get a contract. He had a real good year, better than I ever would have anticipated. The first year he did not look amazing. They improve on D by bringing in Nick Leddy is a step up over anyone last year. They'll sign Roenick at some point. He'll get a pretty good contract. I think they're at least probably in the $5 million range, I would think. But to me, he's a top 2 defenseman. He's a good, excellent number 2 right shot defenseman. This guy he reminds you of a kind of a sort of a Cronwell type defenseman without maybe the giant hits, but he's very solid offensively and he's good one-on-one. So you got to like this. I like Gustav Lindstrom. He's never going to get you points, but he's very, very reliable defensively. The real star of this whole situation has got to be Moritz Seider. And then they draft Simon Edvinsson. So the future is looking pretty good. You only have 1 more year left on this contract with the Kaiser. Nick Leddy will be a step up. I really like that they brought back Mark Stahl. He played very well with Troy Stetcher. So I don't know, good moves by Detroit all around. And of course, they stole Nedeljkovic. So to answer your question, I think Valtteri's probably done. I wouldn't be surprised if he did sign like a contract with them, or maybe he goes to the KHL, or maybe he goes back to Finland to play. The favorites to win the cup. Florida looks really good to me on paper. You got to say Tampa and Florida are 2 of the top. Vegas is very good. They've improved. Boston looks really good on paper. So I got to think Boston has got to be in that mix, but I'm not sure what gets them over that hump, They're running out of time here. They've lost Krejci. He's gone back to the Czech Republic. They probably knew that. I think they've made moves to improve, but that's a big loss there to me. They need a centerman that can handle the puck and get it to Taylor Hall, because you don't want Taylor Hall overhandling the puck. You want him shooting. Oh, nice. There you go. Canada Board is opening August 9th. All right, we're going to find out. I think because I started late, William, unfortunately, I had to take my wife last minute to her office. So I told Coach I was going to be 15 minutes late. So he might not be happy that we had to start late. All right. So, yeah, overall, those are kind of the teams I'm thinking. I think Vegas is in the mix. They did a lot to improve their third line. They sacrificed Fleury in net, but then they got a real good backup in Laurent Brossois. They got Dadonov. So I don't know. Vegas to me looks like they have a real stronger third line today than they did. We know Alex Tuch's going to be out early, but they should be able to weather that storm. They'll have a full year of Alex Pietrangelo on D. So I think Vegas will be very good. Colorado has some issues, right? I like the Darcy Kuemper move. Day to day, to me, Darcy Kuemper is actually maybe better than Grubauer. I think he's better. He's big. He steals games. He's just played in weird places, and people always underestimate Darcy Kuemper. They got to do some. They've signed, Cale Makar. They signed Landeskog. They lost Brandon Saad, though. So I think there's still a few question marks about, overall, though. All right, let's be honest. Overall, Colorado's still very good. Are they better today than they were last year? Not sure about that, but I got to think they're in the mix, and they could break through. I like the Maltsev. That's an understated move they did with New Jersey to free up some salary. Carolina's still in that mix. Carolina's still very good. So Florida, Carolina, Tampa, if you're in that division, really good. The Rangers on paper are very, very good. Is that a Stanley Cup contender? I think we're a ways from understanding that. But I mean, on paper, that seems ridiculous. So I don't know. There's some questions in this lineup. They signed Darren Helm. That'll help solidify the fourth line. Maltsev, I think, is capable of playing up in the lineup. Actually, I think he's better offensively than Jost. I really like Alex Newhook for a full season. I like Val Nichushkin on the third line. JT Compher, to me, I'm not sure if he's a second-line player. Burakovsky absolutely is. So they're probably, Kazari's had a well-documented history of being super undisciplined and it costing his team. So I don't know. I still think Colorado's in that mix. Sorry, I'm having some problems here. Carolina lost Hamilton and Jake Bean. Their D is pretty damn good. I think number one for Carolina, they improved their goaltending. So I think that getting Freddie Anderson getting they didn't get to keep Jonathan Bernier, which I thought would have been a good move for them. They moved on from Nedeljkovic, and I think that there's something to what they're saying about Nedeljkovic, that he's not, they know they have to sign Svechnikov. Their best defensemen are Slavin, Pesce. Those are the best two. And there was always talk about moving them, and I'm like, why? Okay, great. So you lose Dougie Hamilton. Dougie Hamilton on paper is a 6'5" defenseman that can really shoot the puck, and he's got, he's good skater, but he's always had a hard time fitting in the dressing room. He's a different person that kind of marches to his own beat. And it's not that he's bad. He's just not necessarily one of the boys. So that's always kind of caused him some problems in other cities. One-on-one, I think he improved the last year and a half defensively, but he ain't perfect defensively. So for a big guy, he should be like, Victor Hedman. He's not that defenseman. So I think that, to me, they lose Dougie Hamilton, but they were able to retain Pesce and Slavin. And those, to me, are their best 2D. They bring in Ethan Bear, who's a cheap second pairing option. And then they get Ian Cole. And I think Ian Cole, to me, is, if you watch this guy, he is big, strong, he can skate. He might not get you offense, because at one point they thought he was more, he could get you some offense, but you don't care. He's very good defensively. So that was a great move. Tony DeAngelo had some, weird temper issues. People were kind of poking at him for whatever his political views were on Twitter. He just needs to stay the hell off Twitter and keep his nose clean. He had a 55-point season 2 years ago. So you got to go, okay, well, can Tony DeAngelo in a lesser role do something here, right? Like, he had 53 points, 15 goals in 68 games, 30. So he's shown he can get offense in the NHL as a defenseman, and that can be real useful. So I think as long as he can, hopefully he matures a little bit. He's a right shot defenseman. Just, play hockey. Shut up and play hockey. Be a good teammate. So this might work out really well. I think to be determined. It's a low risk, high potential move for them. He was bad defensively. Hi, Zachary. Got a baseball game. He's good 5 or 6, right? Like, I think Tony DeAngelo has some, holes in his game defensively. And I always thought he made some decisions with the puck that would create opportunity for the other team. But that could be, overall, having Ian Cole, DeAngelo, and Ethan Bear, you're not too worried about the fact they gave up Jake Bean. I thought Jake Bean played really well in the power play for them last year. I think it was a good acquisition by Columbus. They just obviously didn't believe in paying him what he wanted to be paid. And the same thing was with Dougie Hamilton. The same thing was with Nedeljkovic. The same thing was with Mrazek. In net, Carolina has absolutely improved. If the problem with it is, can these two goalies, Ranta and Anderson, who have a history of injuries, both of them that have impacted their career, if you look at Ranta over the last 5 years, he is top 5 goalies in save percentage and goals against. He's got the tools, but lots of injury problems. Same thing with Freddie Anderson. So that's the big question mark. Can these guys stay healthy? Because if they can, you got to, day to day, these guys are better than Mrazek, who also had his own injury problems last year, and Nedeljkovic. So I think they've probably improved over last year. Oh, Hakanpää, yeah. DeAngelo can do some points and maybe even 3 or 4. Yep, he's capable. So, all right, everybody. So thank you for joining us this morning. I unfortunately have a hard stop. I have to go do some work. So we'll keep an eye out for some other news. If there's anything else that you want to talk about, I think Coach Frenchie will be on later on. Unfortunately, I started late, so I think he was a little frustrated with that, but I wasn't able to get around it. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you haven't hit like or subscribe, do that. Yarmo asked about Jake Gardiner. I'm not sure if I doubt anybody grabbed him. He's always been a weird defenseman for me. I'm not a big fan. So I think what you see there, even Tony DeAngelo would be an upgrade over that. Yeah, I'm sure Coach will be on later. So thanks everyone for joining us, and have a wonderful day.